We had a big order handed down over the weekend in your case against Todd Blanche. Give us a quick rundown of what happened.
I felt like I was channeling you, Aaron. I was like, breaking news. We have this order that's coming on Saturday. So this order is very short, but it has a punch. So far, my lawsuit against Todd Blanche has been successful on every step. And this particular order, I think, speaks volumes about kind of generally what this judge thinks about the merits of my case, but also speaks about how the Trump DOJ just doesn't have credibility anymore. So Judge Sullivan, my judge, has ordered Todd Blanche to appear with specific unredacted Epstein files, emails, and documents no later than 3 p.m. Eastern on Thursday, July 30th. But really, most importantly, Aaron, Todd Blanche must come and show his work. Meaning he has to bring documentation that supports his representations that the redactions that have occurred have done so to protect victims, which we know is really the only permissible exemption that's allowed under the Epstein Files Transparency Act. Blanche and Bondi have both admitted there's no national security implication, there's no classified documents. So really, other than taking care of the victims, which we know they haven't done, especially with Blanche, you can't redact anything. And so Judge Sullivan telling Blanche that he has to prove what he's claiming, I think is a bad sign for somebody who wants to be the Attorney General of the United States. Hi. So yesterday was a big day. Todd Blanche, the acting Attorney General of the United States, produced to federal judge Emmett Sullivan in the district court in D.C., produced unredacted emails and documents for purposes of a in-camera or an in-chambers review. I'm not allowed to be there. It's something for the judge to be able to do on his own. It is pursuant to an order that was entered on July 25th, 2026, that we've covered here at Katie Fang News. This order was specific, about the bait stamp documents that were to be submitted, and accompanying those unredacted bait stamp documents, Todd Blanche was to provide documentation supporting
weaponization fund. I mean, this is insane. The idea that the president wants a fund that he controls so he can give money to insurrectionists. He wants a fund that he can give money out to traitors who attacked the country, who attacked our capital, who caused harm, what they did to police officers. And of course, who knows who else he wants to give this money to? Essentially a trust fund for Donald Trump and all of his insurrectionist pals and buddies. That is not going to be allowed in the Congress and in the country and in the courts. And so the president's making it clear that he really was not being honest when he said that the fund would go away. Todd Blanche was not being honest when he said there would no longer be a fund. And so I'm glad that you're seeing Senators Cornyn and Senators Tillis actually stand up for the Constitution and stand against this fund. I wish that John Thune and that Mike Johnson had the same spine and actually stand up to Donald Trump and say, no way are we going to allow this fund or the ongoing corruption.
The Justice Department this week complied with the federal court order and handed over unredacted Epstein files to a federal judge for private review. The DOJ says most redactions in these files protect victims and law enforcement personnel, but it withheld the identity of two people who allegedly emailed Epstein, one saying they, quote, love the torture video. The judge will decide whether these redactions are legally justified. But what more can you tell us about these files?
Look, I think broadly speaking, what's really important here is there is some movement that's been happening with some of these lawsuits, Katie Fang, other efforts that have been out there, where you're starting to see some of these files and judges actually say, look, there has to actually be a full release from the DOJ. Because at this very moment, about half of the total Epstein files have not been released to the Congress or the public. We've only seen half of the evidence. And we understand that there's still a significant amount of information, files, evidence that the DOJ still has in their possession, but they're not turning it over. And why is that? What are they actually hiding? What does Donald Trump not want us to see? What does Todd Blanche not want us to get access to? And so if the courts are able to extract this from the DOJ, that is a good step. But the reality is that we don't know what the DOJ is actually going to give the courts. We cannot trust this Department of Justice. The survivors have been clear. They want the full files released with protecting, of course, their names and their identities. And we support that effort. we're not going to stop until all of the files are released. And so there's efforts that are happening in the courts, there's efforts that are happening in the Congress, and we continue to push every single day and won't stop until all those files are released.
I want to quickly touch on what you and Senator Richard Blumenthal are demanding, which is...
I got to tell you, I think what's going on here today is the Republicans are terrified. The president doesn't want to release all the files. I mean, after promising that he would release them during the campaign, then he issued, that was in 2024, and then 2025, he says, it's all a big hoax. It's perpetrated by Democrats and some stupid Republicans. So when you say all Republicans want this stuff released, I don't think that guy does.
That's right.
And what you're telling us that you're going to release some of the files tonight. If I heard Mr. Garcia correctly, 97% of which is already out in public. Why can't the administration just release the files? Trump and the people he put in charge of the FBI and the DOJ promised that they would. And it's just kind of strange that they haven't done so yet. I mean, don't you think? I mean, we just want to know, what are they trying to hide? Why is this such a difficult thing for them to do?
Yesterday, on July 30th, it cites that hand delivery was made of the ordered documents at 2:28 p.m. Eastern on July 30th. And according to Todd Blanche's representations, the submitted documents show that the justifications that were cited in his briefing, and what is he referencing? He's referencing this, his response to the order to show cause. Blanche says that the submitted documents show that those justifications cited in this document support each redaction. Let's take a minute. What is still not produced? The redaction log that the Epstein Files Transparency Act requires by law for the Attorney General to submit, in addition to the summary of redactions and withholds that Todd Blanche seems to think covers all bases. He's wrong on the law. Judge Sullivan granted the redaction log as a part of my preliminary injunction, and as we sit here today on July 31st, still no redaction log. Remember that. But thank you, Todd, for laboring so fucking hard, okay, to support each redaction with an explanation, like you were supposed to do for all of the redactions. But okay. Now, let's start with the first document, EFTA 00749-245. I want to do this with you. I think it's important to go through these emails. This is the I loved the torture video email. This is the email that Todd Blanche wanted to say that if I had just Googled it, I would have found out that it's Sultan bin Sulayem. Maybe it is.
We are nearing 1 year into the congressional oversight investigation of Jeffrey Epstein. At least 16 closed-door interviews, from Bill Gates to Bill Clinton to Howard Lutnick and Pam Bondi. But survivors say they're frustrated. We have the latest example why. In a CNN exclusive, 6 survivors say Jeffrey Epstein's longtime assistant, Leslie Groff, lied to Congress in June. And they say it went well beyond claiming she had never met the victims. CNN's MJ Lee has that reporting and joins me now. MJ, this is really important information that you're uncovering here.
Yeah, and I should say, for starters, Leslie Groff may not be a household name to most people, but in the Epstein world, she is a huge figure. She worked for Epstein for some 18 years, basically managed every aspect of his life. And so when her transcript in her interview with the House Oversight Committee came out a few weeks ago, survivors were really angry. We should note, Groff has not been charged with the crime, and she told lawmakers, I never knew anything about his abuse of girls and women. But there were several things that she said that survivors told me and Nikki Robertson these things are not true. For starters, Groff told lawmakers that she never met any of the girls and women who were coming to Epstein to give him massages. We interviewed 6 Epstein survivors, and all 6 of them told us, basically, is she kidding? Of course we have met her. Listen to Marina Lacerda. She was 13 or 14 when she first met Epstein.
There's just no way. In order for you to introduce Jeffrey Epstein to a girl, or if a girl wanted to meet Jeffrey Epstein, you had to go through Leslie Groff. And those questions were asked. How old is she? Where is she from? What does she look like? Where does she live? Is she going to school? These were top 5 questions by Leslie Groff.
Groff also told Congress that she never knew these girls' ages. One woman that we spoke with anonymously, she said that she was attending a Catholic school and that Epstein liked to see her in her school uniform. And so she said, Groff saw me multiple times wearing my school uniform and would ask me to leave school early to come see Epstein. This is also something else that Charlene Richard, one of the other survivors we spoke with on camera, said about why she is sure Groff knew exactly how old she was.
Of course she knew how old we were because she had to look at our IDs to book our flight.
And Groff also said that she never directly paid money to these women. One person, and some of the women we talked to, described these white envelopes stuffed with cash, fresh cash, that Groff would hand them. And they said essentially Groff was how we got paid. I'll also note that Groff's lawyer did not respond.
These files are still far from fully released, but continued legal pressure and the courage of survivors and their families is forcing Trump's allies to disclose more and more information. Some of what has already emerged could seriously damage Donald Trump's reputation and political future. Even JD. Vance acknowledged the political problem. Trump spent years drawing attention to the Epstein files despite knowing that his long association with Epstein meant his name would almost certainly appear throughout the records. Even in the least damaging scenario, that association raises an obvious question. Why did Trump remain so close to someone with such a disturbing reputation? And the consequences could become far more serious if future evidence reveals anything beyond mere social contact. Politically, Trump's biggest mistake was refusing to confront the issue directly. Instead of releasing the material and ending the controversy, his administration fought disclosure at every turn, allowing the story to drag on until it became a major midterm election issue. That continued pressure has come from Democrats in Congress, independent legal experts, attorneys donating their time in the public interest, and most importantly, the survivors and their families. Their persistence has ensured that more documents continue to emerge, sometimes through court orders and sometimes because of government incompetence. And the central point remains: this story is not over. More information is still coming out, and the public still does not know what remains hidden. Trump could have ripped off the bandage in the spring of 2025. Instead, he resisted disclosure and allowed suspicion to grow. Perhaps the most troubling possibility is that something in those files was damaging enough that he believed it had to be concealed at any cost.